Hi, John.
Hi, Alex.
You made a very popular tweet today. It's about predictions for the future startups. Today, I want to discuss with you the most exciting of them.
I think the AI model race has hit the wall already from what we can see. 12 months ago, all predictions were saying that we will be much farther away, much closer to AGI and everything than we are now. So the only thing that happened in the last 12 months is that AI got slightly better at coding. And that was obvious because they just trained it with more code, but it didn't get better at reasoning and things like that. It just got better at knowing how to code. And as in any space where you learn something, like you as a human, like you learn guitar, for example, and you
Mhm.
progress really fast. First, you progress very slow, and then you progress really fast, and then eventually you hit certain level from where the progress is very tiny, and you have to do a lot of effort to go tiny up. Same thing here. So it's not new, right? And it means that for AI models, they will get cheaper and cheaper because they are very similar. They have to compete on price, and we see that the price keeps dropping and
Yeah.
dropping every week or month. And then we have the open source players from mainly from Mark Zuckerberg and from
Yeah.
Mistral in France, which are doing almost as good as the paid models, and they're catching up, and soon they will catch up completely. So that's good news. It means that there will be no one big monopoly that supplies us with AI and then can throw us out of this tech world by not supplying us with AI. Now we can buy AI from anyone we want, or we can just host our own model, which is open source. That's one prediction I have. And then to go past and make significant breakthrough, I think there has to be something new that happens in AI world that didn't happen yet. And then the commodity. So B2B goes towards becoming a commodity, and it's been predicted by many for many years. What means here is that if something has defined outcome, for example, analytics tool, and most
Mhm.
people just view it as a place to see number of users signing up for your tool and then channels and things like that. So at some point it becomes so obvious what people need that all the tools out there look the same, and that's what happens. User map and plausible fathom and simple analytics, and all of them, they're just exactly the same, right?
Yep.
And when that happens, then it's hard to compete with products. You can only compete with price, and that's what they do. Every new player that comes in drops the price, and then eventually it will be like a fork. You have a fork, it just does the job. You don't care where the fork comes from, and you just
Mhm.
buy the cheapest fork.
But isn't the market growing as well? So the supply meets the demand.
Well, the market is growing, but it doesn't grow as fast as the supply, because once the new player comes into the game, suddenly,
Mhm.
let's say the market is growing and we have 100 million users today, and tomorrow we have 110 million in a year. That's the best case scenario. But for tools, if we have 20 tools today and next year we have 40 tools because 20 new tools enter the game, then we have
Mhm.
double the supply and the demand didn't double. So I think it's easier to double supply, because everything you have to do is to just
Mm.
clone the thing, and then it's kind of out there, right?
That's for
That's why for simple tools, and most tools are simple, like commodities, I think a lot of the makers will use them as a way to practice their maker skill, and that's why they will kind of do those obvious ideas,
Mhm.
publish it out there, as we see with all these no code tools like landing page builders, boilerplates, etc. Yeah, so that's why I think we come to the real sector, and it's the same topic. So basically, because the narrow pop topic of building regular digital SaaS tools like analytics and email tools and PM tools and document stuff, and these things will be so overoccupied and oversupplied by the makers that it will be almost impossible to enter this race in the future. And it will be almost like a gambling, because the chance of making it here is very low. And people will start going into less sexy areas such as bio and healthcare and agriculture and construction and teaching and urban planning and a lot of things like that. Like, it's a long list.
Mhm.
And those sectors have no innovation at all. If you look at what's happening there,
Mm.
They have some few companies doing some small things there, but it's very little innovation. Like a good example, or that I can bring in is one of my companies, which is software for cinemas. I hope nobody starts a competitor after this, but we have such a little. I'm sure we will start competitors, but that's fine. But we have such a little competition there that I know every competitor, and I know that every single competitor we had has been either struggling, closed down, or not growing. Right? And for 10 years, not a single new company has entered the race. Like everybody who is there, they've been there before me. So since I entered the race, there was no new company that appeared in this market. Like maybe there's some smaller, but I'm talking about those who made significant change. And I think same for a lot of other sectors. So I think makers will start searching outside of the same stuff that we all do.
I have two questions. You claimed that more and more people will be able to press the fork button and have their own entity of plausible, for example, or count visits. But it doesn't mean that they will have users, right? It's not enough just to clone the thing. You also have to sell it. And people will use the most popular ones. All these hundreds of forks will be unknown. Nothing will change.
The way it works is that the easier it is to make a fork, the higher is the chance that somebody with good marketing skills will make the fork and distribute the thing. And the more marketing people can do this, the higher is the competition. And also, in these tools, it's very difficult to have the winner takes it all because there is nothing that stops you from switching. And most likely, we're going to see that a lot of these tools will have some market share, some more, some less, but overall, none of them will have any significant share so that they can see themselves thriving for the next 20 years. And we have one company that does something different in this space, for example, PostHog. And I predict that PostHog will be the biggest analytics company in the world by far. And I predict that they will be the only one in the company. They will be just like Google for search. They will do that for analytics. Why? Because they're actually doing something that's not commodity. They're taking the analytics to the next level. But the thing is that the distance between plausible and PostHog is so huge that no maker ever gonna get there. So that's kind of a huge tool. It's hard to build that kind of stuff compared to building another plausible kind of project.
Okay, so you advise makers to build complex stuff, which no one can reproduce easily.
I don't advise that because most likely going to fail by building complex stuff because you need more people, more money, and resources. And that's why I advise to build stuff that's not sexy. Find something that's not that cool, and like bakeries, build some software for bakeries. There are a lot of areas where you can build stuff, and people have been trying to build stuff for bakeries for ages. It always failed. I am one of those, and my stuff still works, but it was really difficult. It took 15 years for that thing. It's called Cake It Easy. It's in the Scandinavia, and it was so difficult to sell to bakers because they were old-minded. The old people worked at bakeries. Same with for cinema. My regular buyer was 65 years old, maybe, but usually they look like my grandfather. I talk to people who are like not much older than me because those people have aged or died. I don't know what happened to them, but new people enter the game and they get hired and they think differently. They don't want to do stuff with paper. They don't want to do stuff with phones and everything. They want to use SaaS tools because they are SaaS native. They've been using SaaS stuff everywhere because they were not from another baker. They were hired from some tech place and they know how to use stuff. That's why I think the demand for software in those niches is so high and the supply is so low that it is going to be the best place to build stuff. It's just makers will say, like, how do I even know what bakeries need? I mean, this is not nuclear. Most of these things are kind of intuitively easy to understand. You can talk to ChatGPT. You can go work at a bakery. That's what I would do. I would just go and work at a bakery and see what's happening and then propose your product there. And I think that will be kind of the new indie maker world.
Same can be applied to your advice to focus on bio, healthcare, agriculture, construction. Go work at a construction, learn how to build houses and see problems, opportunities build software for
Yeah.
men, because the new generation of construction men are younger and they are familiar with SaaS, but they don't have anything to use, right?
Exactly. So the notion that all these people are kind of retarded and they're old and they have no idea what's technology, it's false. So now everyone has Bitcoin in their wallet, like even taxi drivers. So now they're younger people doing all this stuff and they know a lot of the tech. And then on this topic, the new platforms will emerge is also part of this prediction. Why do I think the new platforms will emerge? Because in the old days, to launch any app, like for example Maps, you have to launch a device with Maps. Same for Compass and other things. And then iPhone came, and then you can launch apps on the iPhone. I think we don't have any of the platforms anywhere else except this few. Like we have Shopify, we have App Store, we have Google Play, and a few more. Not so many. Right. And in music, we have Spotify, right? In old days, you would have to distribute your music yourself. Now we have Spotify. So I think same thing will happen for all those boring industries. So there will be a platform for healthcare software that you can just deploy and it just gets into the healthcare facilities and can be used there, of course after some reviews and all the things. But you don't have to send your device, because again, look at any healthcare facility, they have a lot of technology there. Obviously it could be turned into one little screen that runs everything, right? Same with what Tesla did to the cars. Now the car is almost like a platform where you can deploy new capabilities of the cars. And I think the same going to happen not only with this kind of stuff, but also I think it will happen to space. And you will be able to run your software on satellites and supply that to mobile phones and customers. So that will be a big thing. And that's why if there's a maker who wants to make something huge and has enough resources, go build a platform for one of these things. If a SaaS tool is too small for you, build a platform that doesn't exist for construction workers, for all those things. But most likely the platforms will be built by VC-backed companies, and the bootstrap guys will be doing the SaaS, the apps for the platforms, which makes sense. Same as PassHawk.
That sounds
And
complicated. To build a platform for every healthcare software, how can an indie maker do that? It's much harder than fork an analytics tool.
yeah, it's impossible. So you have to have a lot of money, people, reputation, and time for that. That's why it will
Yeah.
be done by VC-backed companies, and it will be done by people who are coming out of those institutions, like some former head of hospital or whatever. And but it will happen. And if I was an indie maker, I would be watching for platforms so that I am the first to run my apps on those platforms, because the people who had their apps first on iPhone made a lot of money, and people thought that the custom GPT store will be that thing.
Yeah.
That was a new platform that failed, right? Because it turned out that it is not much better than just GPT, right? And that's the nature of that thing. That GPT, raw GPT, is not much worse than the custom GPT, and then people don't want to kind of switch things and look for things. And the last one is the VC money will exit the pre-seed stage. Oh, this is something that's happening already today. So if you look at the pre-seed investment, it has dropped. So basically, we have pre-seed running well still for repeat founders, and that makes sense. If repeat founders, if you go and to investors and say, guys, I want to launch some new project and I've made this one, I sold this one, they will give you money even before you write a single line of code or validated anything, because you have validated the whole thing before, and they can trust you that you're a good bet. They will give you money upfront, right? But for all founders who are not having the of making successful projects, chance of raising money before they have traction is nearly zero, and it's dropping every day. So it's maybe it was 10%, now it's 2%, tomorrow it will be 1%, eventually it will be 0.1%. Maybe some get it sometimes, I don't know why, but mostly it will be absent. And that means that we will see huge surge of indie maker quantity, and that's happening already. For example, I spoke to people in Norway in my former ecosystem where I was growing up as a startup founder, and almost all founders who were doing VC-backed startups together with me back in the days, almost all of them now are going for indie hacking. I would say all of them. I haven't found anyone who is not doing that now, and who pursues the VC path again. And that's just one location I know. And I wouldn't say that Norway is known for having a lot of indie hackers. So I think some other places have even better numbers where the life is cheaper, which is kind of good and bad. So the good thing that we will have less competition from VC-backed startups on early stages. As indie hackers, we will have less competition with them. The bad thing is that there will be a lot more indie hackers doing the same thing. So there will be a lot more competition among indie hackers moving forward, unless the indie hackers move into kind of diverse verticals and don't sit all on the same thing, unless they all don't keep building the same landing page builder over and over again.
What comes first? It's a chicken and egg question. What comes first? The rise of numbers of indie makers or the lack of pre-seed money?
Yeah. I think it's so. It all started by money becoming expensive and all the VC funds just having less money to deploy. That's one thing. The next thing is that the whole world thinks that building a startup is so easy because there's AI. In reality, it's still hard. AI doesn't do all the job, and you still have to write code, and everything is as complicated as it was. Slightly better for some, a lot better, but it's not like we went from spending 6 months to spending 6 minutes. But the people think so, like the majority of the population thinks so, and that's why people are expected to do things fast. That's why it doesn't make sense to deploy money if that can be done in 1 month. And then the question, just do it. You have money to pay your rent for 1 month. If you don't, what's wrong with you then? And that's why I think it is. That's how it started. But then what happened next is that the whole world saw that indie hackers and bootstrap founders are actually doing really well and have been doing really well for a long time, but now they're doing extremely well compared to the old times. Now, 4 years ago, none of the VCs followed the indie hackers. Now, most famous indie hackers are followed by everyone. So we can't say now that the indie makers are some small tribe nobody knows about. I think the whole world knows about indie makers if you look at the world who is interested. And they watch and they see that one guy launches a project alone that competes with a team of 40 people. And then he launches the other project that competes with the other team of 40 people. And he wins against both, for example. And then they're like, scratching their hair and saying that I should look for people who can do that. That's a good bet. Right? We saw an example of that yesterday or a week ago. Lemon Squeezy was bought by Stripe.
Oh, yeah.
What can be better than that? Like now the VCs are like, so a little group of people with no outside money has built the most popular, complicated piece of software. And now, you think they will invest into that kind of thing on early stage? Probably not. They will rather go look for next lemon squeezy and invest into them to scale them. That's why I think we're going to see a lot of VC money being deployed into bootstrap founders on a scale up phase, or they will be just bought by other companies like it happened.
It sounds like it makes sense for a VC to invest in a person rather than a product, because code has zero value. You can code most of the basic apps in a month. So the way to get investments is to be an outstanding founder. This leads us to your fifth prediction. Distribution will mean everything. Can you elaborate this?
Yeah, I think people have been telling this for a long time, but now we see the proofs. We see that people who can distribute stuff and can win audience, they can solve the supply later. They can build products, they can outsource and bring them in. So that part is basically just not interesting part anymore. The interesting part, can you actually win the audience? And if you can win the audience, it means you can win more audience. So basically you have the muscle of winning the audience. It means you can keep winning the audience forever. And that's why it's like snowball. You're going to be bigger and bigger and bigger. A good example is like Mark Liu or other guys. You can see how fast they grow, because it's not like they were lucky to get somewhere to get to 20,000 followers, for example. No, they have the muscle and they keep using the muscle, and they will keep winning the audience farther and farther. And that's why I think you're right. Investing into one of his tools is strange, because he might just start 12 new tools tomorrow. right? And that's why we don't know what's going to happen there. Like VCs probably are sitting there and thinking like, how can we actually monetize this kind of stuff from this? And they don't know yet. I think there is some like potential that we will actually see the actual human investment contracts, and it happens already. Like in Silicon Valley, that there are guys, Libermans, like the Liberman brothers, and they
Mm.
have launched a project that does it, and they got investment like $50 million to invest into humans, where you just get investment and everything, and it's co-owned. We might see that, but then the good question here, like, why do you need the money? Yesterday, Peter Levels said, "I'm too rich. I don't need more money," and what he meant
That's
is that he's making all the money inside. Like, there are no other co-founders, right? So the whole profit is his money. And if that happens, what can VC bring in? Usually, the indie makers are amazing at growing without spending money. That's why, like, the typical VC world is when you find founders who have no idea how to grow besides burning money on ads. But
yeah.
here, like, you don't need the money. I think what we will see is that we will see some market for where people buy some revenue share in projects. But to be honest, there is a high chance that VCs will not find their space in this kind of app world, and they will only invest into platforms. And now, actually, that's happening. Like, VCs invest into platforms, they invest
Mhm.
into AI models, which are also platforms, but we don't see a lot of investments into, if you remove AI wrappers, we don't see investments into SaaS. Like, SaaS investments are not common anymore besides AI wrappers and the platforms.
But what about distribution will be everything? You said that the next generation of founders are those who build their audience. So you can't make a successful product without an audience?
I don't think so. I don't think so because you're competing with somebody who can win the audience, and he will win your audience too, right?
Mhm.
So if you and me are good founders, and I know how to win the audience, you don't know how to win the audience. Even if your product is better, it's easier for me to actually make my product better than yours or as good as yours because I can see your product, I can copy your product, I can hire better people at product, etc.
Yeah.
But it's harder for you to learn to win the audience or to hire somebody who will win the audience because it's a different thing. It's just same as in music. I can hire a new guitar player or piano player into my band, but I can't replace the face and the.
Yeah.
I think we will see the swap. So the new generation of makers, I see that already. Looking at people who write me DMs, etc. The new generation of makers are not the people who know how to code, and one day they thought like, why don't I make my own product after working as a developer for a while, right? That was
Mhm.
the old generation of guys, right? And
Yeah.
it's just like our generation. But the new generation, the dudes who are like 20 years old, they don't know how to code. They just maybe learn a little bit. But those of them who know how to win audience and have followers and grab attention, they will be able to supply them with products, and those products can be brought either they can use AI to create them, they can fork them, they can find somebody who does it, they can outsource. It's not important, but the important part is the audience. And basically, we will see that these people will win more and more battles. Like, for example, we see that now. Again, take Mark Liu as example. He can enter vertical now and win it. For
Yeah.
example, like even plausible, like that's good
Yeah.
product. But if he launches a competitor to plausible, there's a high chance he will be the number two very soon after them, and at some point maybe even closer. And we're gonna see that more and more. So in that case, the question, like, how can you be competitive in the open market with your good product if there are other people who can win the audience and also have good product, right? So then having good product is not enough anymore.
Can you train that muscle, that skill to attract?
That's the thing I spent most time thinking about almost every day. I had a talk about that today with my friends too. I think
Mm.
my hope is that it's possible to train. Sometimes I can see people who, like, even if you look at me, I had no followers, now I have followers. But I think from what I've seen in reality, I haven't
Mhm.
seen a profile on Twitter that was not interesting and became interesting. I haven't seen that in my life yet. And I'm following that. Every time I see a new profile, I kind of make a mark to come back. I even have this list that I made that purpose. It's called Raising Indie Maker Stars. And the reason I made it, I'm telling the first time, that was the reason I made it. I want to come back to that
Mhm.
list and scroll and see if any of those people are doing interesting stuff. And I don't want to offend anyone, but I think being interesting, funny, profound, and attentive, and not egocentric, not narcissistic, and all those things, and good at storytelling, and
Mm.
good at being compressed sentences into words, like all those things are so hard. So that maybe you can learn that, but it's not like something you can learn within a month or even a year. I think maybe if you find
Mhm.
someone who is years old and they start doing that, maybe by the time they are 20 they will learn it. But I think if you take someone who is 25 or 27 or 30, I think there's almost no chance. It's almost like I would make this test: can you become a comedian? That's the test thing, because being a stand-up comedian is the same as winning attention with anything, even not funny content, right? Because the same stuff, you have to make sharp jokes and short text, so it's difficult.
So, okay, imagine I'm a founder who can't become a comedian. I shouldn't create yet another analytics because there are hundreds of them and I won't be able to get
Yeah.
users. So it's a bad idea. I can't create a platform because it requires a lot of resources and cash injection. What should I do?
I know where you're heading. Yeah, you have to do directory, or you have to do
Hmm.
something that relies on absence of attention winning mechanisms, like SEO is one of the lists, right? So basically, any SEO projects can be done by people who don't even have Twitter profile, because it's not. And I know plenty of people like that. I just told two guy today who was running a huge directory that was sold to someone, and he made a lot of money, and he has very few followers, and he doesn't perceive himself as someone who is good at storytelling and etc. So I always tell that, and I did that to myself too. All the years prior what I do now, I was trying to find myself and find where do I fit best, like where my skill and my ability fits best, and I'm competitive there, and I'm probably top 1% of the world there. And it took me a while to find that, and I think people have to do the same. If you're funny and entertaining, then maybe go after commodity projects where the coding part is little, not important, but the marketing is important. You do a lot of work there, and you just kind of take other people users. So if you're good at marketing and attention, you don't have to create new product. You can just make the same product as someone else and win their attention. It doesn't sound noble. It sounds cloning someone, but in reality that happens. Like 90% of new products are the clones of existing products,
Yeah,
and
but what
they
about the guys who can't do that?
I think the guys who don't have that, they should go off stuff that can grow with SEO. I
SEO
think
only.
that's today that's the best. Number two, go to non-competitive spaces. For example, cows or agriculture. I'm sure the space is not competitive. I'm sure that you don't have to be amazing at sales there, because nobody pitches anything to those people. That's why whoever who comes and pitches stuff will be winning the contract there, for example. Uh, and also,
Mhm.
there are levels of abilities. Mark Liu, I'm quoting him the whole day, but
Mhm.
he's almost like an actor. He can
Yeah.
act, like he can write, he can act, he can speak, and that's like a lot, right? Like it's very few people like that. Some people are great at writing. For example, like Greg Isenberg. He is
Oh
not
yeah.
as good actor as Mark. Like he looks okay on camera, but Mark is like Brad Pitt, right? But Greg writes really well, like maybe the best on the internet. And then there are people who are great at short writing. For example, this guy Dux. I don't know the rest of his name, but the guy who does SST with a beard, like he
Oh yeah.
always makes this spicy stuff, and he's great at offensive, controversial, short takes on things, and that's a skill. Ask him to write something longer, maybe it won't be interesting, but these short, spicy takes are cool. So I think people have to. And then there are guys like Elias, and
Yeah.
then some other guys who are great at SEO, and they're not great at acting. They're probably not great at interesting tweets, but they're really great at SEO. So I think you have to find what you're great at and do that. And some people are bad at all that, but they are good at just knocking the door of a bakery
Mm.
and saying hello. How are you handling your inventory? And then maybe offering a product there, just face to face sales. Right? Some people are good at that. And there are
So your
plenty of those methods.
general advice is not to try mimic others, but to find your strong skills and use
Yes,
them.
I think that's, you just mentioned now the biggest number one mistake that is happening in the indie maker world, where people
Mhm.
really try to mimic other makers they like. And that's like totally wrong. That's something I've been doing as a mistake at the start too. And I
Mhm.
think you were the one who actually helped me to get over of that idea and just become myself and not be the guy who just copies the viral stuff. I think that's super important because it's fulfilling and satisfying to do something that you're actually good at. You come up with ideas yourself rather than copying someone. It feels good. You feel more proud about that. And what's better, you'll get better at that. If you're copying if you're just cloning someone else's style or something, from now you won't grow because you're just copy pasting. You're not growing at all. Like when that guy dies and you can't copy from there, you'll be where you were before that. Like you're not developing a skill. But if you do something on your own, you're bad at the start, you're better tomorrow, and eventually you'll be really good. And maybe that will make you kind of famous, and you will win audience that way. And there are a lot of ways, as I just mentioned. I listed 5 ways, but there are like hundreds. Really, you can make, like, some people are good at partnerships. I know guys, like I had the founder Kim, the Danish guy.
Mhm.
He could make a partnership with anyone. He would just come to McKinsey, for example, and he would bring champagne and get drunk with them.
Right.
And eventually they were our partner reselling our stuff because he was good at drinking with people, right? That's kind of, some people are good at that, getting drunk with people and becoming friends. Just find something that's closer to your kind of spirit.
That's not an actionable advice. Everybody wants something you can do tomorrow.
Take these 7 things I mentioned, try each of them, try
Mhm.
SEO for a week, try to knock the doors with some idea you came up with yesterday and see what happens. If you can even speak to people, try to DM people out of cold, try to write long articles, try all this
Can you somehow
for,
predict what will work? Because you know yourself, you know that you're good at socializing or not, you're good at drinking or not. Can you
I
somehow
think
predict
most
it?
people
Because trying
can't.
will take years.
I can tell you, if you bring me a person, I can tell you what they're good at because it's easy.
How?
Because I've seen a lot of people. Well,
Teach us.
if someone is funny, then they can write good tweets. I can tell that 100% because being
Mhm.
funny means you're good at compressing information and you're good at playing with the words, for example.
Mhm.
Or if someone is confident when they're talking to me, they're looking in my eyes and their handshake is strong and I feel kind of a dominance, those people can go and knock the doors and make
Mhm.
deals and sell physically. And some people are nerdy, and nerdy people are good for SEO because SEO is a nerdy thing. You have to do, it's
Mhm.
almost like coding. That's why most coders like SEO because it's the same thing. It's technical. Like SEO is technical.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so for me, it's easy. Maybe I should make this persona for where you fill out things and it tells you who you are and what you should do. But for younger people, I see often that they are a bit, they think they're good at everything often. So it's harder, as you say. It's easy, but it's easy for older person to see the younger person and judge. It's harder for a younger person to
Mhm.
judge themselves. I had no idea. Good example. When I was 18, I had no idea what I'm good at. No idea. I tried
Mhm.
everything for years, and I just figured out what I'm good at when I was 32. So it took me a
Mhm.
while.
That sounds depressing for somebody.
Well, I guess, but it's fun if you enjoy the road.
Can you tell what works for you? What are your marketing muscles?
For me, it works with everything somehow because I've tried everything, as I said now. So I know how to
Mhm.
sell face to face. I know how to make partnerships. I know how to do SEO. I know how to tweet. I know how to write long stories. So I am a bad example because I've tried all the methods and I know that I'm the best at face to face and writing long reads. Like these two things, I'm the best. Like among all of my other skills, I can write really interesting stories because I like storytelling. And when I speak, I use the same muscle. I'm doing storytelling when I speak face to face too. I'm not
Yeah.
that good when I have little time frame. If I have 5 minutes, usually I'm not winning the heart. If I have just a tweet with 150 or 200 characters, I'm not that good. But I still learned that, and I'm average, which is okay. But I think maybe if I was to recommend someone to find their own muscle, I would still say try all, because it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of all those skills. Even if you don't have natural inclination to that skill, it's still not bad to have all seven and then pick one. It's easier to compare, by the way. Try one, try the other, and compare. One brought zero, one brought five users, one you hated and you felt bad and you couldn't sleep after, like one you loved and in the morning you want to do it again.
Maybe you could create a Twitter threads and
I'm thinking
list
about
all
that now.
approaches and best examples. Like you said, Mark Lu is a great actor, and then cold seller, the SEO
Yeah.
experts, and so on. It will be a great inspiration for beginners because everything they see in their feed is the best comedians like Mark, but they don't see
Yeah.
SEO experts, geeks,
That's a good
and those
point. That's a good point. It
make
was the
them
same with me.
highlight them.
Yeah, it was the same with me at the beginning. So all my feed was pretty much the same people doing the same thing, and I thought that's the only way to do. And only later I realized that there are a lot of ways to do that. You can write long, short, you can be funny, you can be smart, you can be analytical, you can be like judgmental. Like some people just criticize things on the internet, and that's not bad too because it's not easy to criticize. It's
Yeah.
interesting. There are a lot of ways. You're right. I was thinking about this while talking. That will be my thread for tomorrow. Today I have this.
Oh, cool.
I made one. I will make this for tomorrow. The domain. Let's talk about that because it's hot.
The main, I
Two.
wanted to talk about this for 30 minutes, not 1 minute. Okay, let's start and
I
continue in
I
a.
think, yeah, but I think this topic doesn't deserve that much content on the internet for it. It's just if you will buy that again, go buy one for $1 million now. You will get nothing out of it. So, but this guy got something out of it, and it was obvious that he is really smart at. Some people really have this good intuition on controversy and on the nerves. I've been following this guy for long from the beginning, basically. I just because I know the other guy because he was my rival, the other guy who does the open source friend. He
Can
was.
you tell the story briefly because not everybody understand
I think everybody knows. Yeah,
what is the man you're talking about?
yes, there was a guy, Nikita, making open source project called Friend, which is a wearable AI wearable open source. They raise money on Kickstarter and from other backers, and they're building it open source. Cool vibe, a lot of supporters, and he has good distribution on Twitter. A lot of people watch his stuff. He had some almost million views on his videos, etc. And then there's other guy who is making the same but VC backed and cool and totally the opposite. So basically, and one day someone said on Twitter, you should rename to Friend. And then he said, I will do, or I will check or something. And then a few days later or weeks later, he bought friend.com domain and he renamed his thing from, I don't know what was the old name, some unremarkable name. And he renamed to Friend. And when he did that, it was obvious to him that people will ask where you got the domain, how much it worth, etc. And someone asked that on the first comment, and when someone asked, he said 2 million or something, and then that went viral because people started asking like this guy just raised 2 million and he invested 1.8 into the domain name. That was like insane. It's all for the story. The reality is that obviously he didn't pay that much money. He's probably having an installment plan. He pays like 50K a month or something, and then if it doesn't work he can always stop paying that and lose some little money and that's it. But I think having this social media talent he has, this drama talent he has, I think he knew that this will create all this kind of controversy and discussion around. And I think he has planned that I'm pretty sure he has planned for that. And now, if you see the amount of PR he got for the 2 million, that's the best money I've ever spent anyone into this. He got, everyone knows, the whole world knows about his project now, the whole tech world. That worth a lot more. So I think he has done smartest move of the year. Like there was no smarter move this year than what he has done. But if you do that today for a new project, it will not work because it has been used already. That's it. That's kind of wasted. Maybe in 3 years when people forget, you can do it again. That's why people should not go and buy another expensive domain and hope. All right, now I drop off. Let's
Okay,
continue
thanks for
on the
today.
next.
Let's talk about the domains in a week. Thank you for
Yeah.
listening, everybody. Bye. Bye, John.
Bye.